sorry. So today we're gonna be doing a mock interview, as you may know. It's gonna be about an hour long. Okay, so right now it's 12. We're gonna go until 1. Wait, are you open
Okay.
on time zone?
Yeah, so
Okay,
right now
so
it's
it's
one
1.
for
It's gonna
me.
go into 2. Okay, no problem. Right. It's gonna be the time's gonna be the same as a real interview, but the format will be different. Right. So we won't do introductions here. We'll just get right into it, and
Okay.
we're gonna go for about 45 minutes. Coding time, right? 45 to 50
Okay.
minutes coding time. Okay, and
Yep.
because it's collaborative, I'll help you keep time. All right.
Okay.
and then um and then at the end we'll have 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, of like discussion, and that's where you can ask me questions. You can ask me questions about just interviewing in general, about the specific questions we asked today, or like anything of that sort. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so let's get into it. So for this problem, I'm gonna read out the description, and you can take notes, just write in the IDE as you like, and feel free to clarify any questions you might have. So just stop me whenever you need.
Yeah.
Okay, so for this problem, I would like you to write me a function called merge intervals. Okay,
Okay.
and this function is going to take in a list of intervals. Okay,
Okay.
and it's going to merge the overlapping intervals and return a list of non-overlapping intervals.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. Well,
You're free to
are
ask
the
any
intervals
clarifications.
open or closed?
The intervals are all closed.
Okay. What format would the intervals be given in?
So we can do them as a pairs. So tuples of starting and endpoints.
Mm-hmm. Oh, would the start point always be less than or equal to the endpoint?
No, not necessarily.
Okay. Wait, so how would you? Okay. So the first element will always be the start point.
Yes, the first element will be the start point, but the intervals
Okay.
can quote unquote go backwards.
Okay. So okay. Problem is to just take in like a list of these tuples and then return a single list from where it starts to where it ends.
Well, you're gonna try to we're gonna return a like another list of tuples, like a list of intervals, right? But the list of intervals that you
Okay.
return will not have any overlapping intervals, right? Because all the ones that were overlapping you have merged together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, no worries. So the input list of intervals can have
Yeah.
intervals that overlap,
Yeah.
right? But your goal is to merge the ones that overlap,
Okay.
so they become one interval,
Okay.
right? And you do that until there are no more overlapping intervals.
Okay.
And so when you return a list of interval, there's no more overlapping intervals anymore, right? Because if they were
Okay.
overlapping, you would have combined them.
Okay. Okay. So I guess first, my first thought would just be to just take the first element and then store it into some sort of array and then like, do I even sort here? I don't think I sort. Um,
Maybe it helped to kind of just start with some examples, right? So why don't you
okay.
just draw out a basic case, and then anything. Well, you can draw it out or type it. That's fine. I can follow you. No worries.
Yeah, I'm gonna draw it
Yeah,
out
that's
then.
cool. That's cool.
So I guess like one case could be like 1, 3, and then 2, 4. So in this case, would it, let's say the simple case,
Yep.
would just have to return like one, what is it? So these two overlap. Only 2 and 3 are overlapping here.
Mm-hmm.
So then what would it return, like 1, 3? Or no?
So in this case, you return 1, 4, right? The
One,
reason you return
four,
one
okay.
four is because the union of these two intervals is 1 to 4.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so, what is it? So their intersection can't be empty.
That's right. Their intersection can't be empty.
Okay, okay. So if I go down here and do like something like 1, 5, and then do like 6 to 7, then I just return like this set or this array back because there's no overlap between them.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um, okay.
Yeah. How about the
I've a lot
case? Sorry. Go ahead.
sorry?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I have a lot of ideas in my head. Like maybe we can check that these like endpoints are within each other. Like let's say this first one is
Yeah.
within this last endpoint, then obviously this one has to go into that. So then you can just take these two and just combine them to a new interval.
Yeah. That's true. Do you want to draw a case where the interval goes backwards, for example?
Yeah, okay, that's like the second edge case, I guess. 10, 6, and then let's do one where it's included, so it's like something like this. Let's go. Okay, wait, no, this is not included. Okay, 7, 3. How about that? So this goes from 3 to 7, and this one goes from 6 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, yeah. I see what you mean now. So we have to take the bigger elements, or okay, bigger of the two. So with these two, okay, so there's also a possibility these two are identical, right?
Yeah, that's a valid interval. Yeah.
Okay, and then okay, so you just take like the max of them, and then compare it if whether. Okay. I think I see a problem here, is because if you take the max, then it's like it's not necessarily within. I don't think.
Well, first of
'Cause
all,
let's say
what's
this
the
one was
answer?
like 8, yeah. Oh, well, okay. Well, the answer is 3. Oh, can I return these in an order?
You can determine any order. Intervals do not care about the
Okay.
order of the endpoints.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
the correct answer, 3 to 10.
Yeah. Okay, and you had a train of thought there about taking the max. What was that about?
Taking the max. Well, that would be the last endpoint.
Okay.
I think drawing a number line would actually help here. So,
Sure, go for it.
let's say 3. This is 1, and then there's another one, 6 to 10. Trying to see a pattern here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think okay, so maybe like these two have to be like next to each other. So let's just draw like a case where like they're not next to each other. So let's say like 3 and 4, 7 and 10. Okay, so these two aren't next to each other.
But do they have to be next to each other though?
No. Okay. 10.
Right. Like if you had the interval, if you had the interval like 3, 7 and 4, 10,
Yeah.
the 4 and 7 aren't next to each other, but this is still overlapping, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this would still be combined. I did like your train of thought for taking the max of something though, right? Like you
Yeah, because
still
that's how you
like
get the endpoint. Yeah.
yes, that's how you get the two endpoints, the max and the min. Um, but how you compare two intervals also does matter, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
like in one case, if you look at this bottom case that we just drew, um, the 3, 7 and 4, 10, the max and the min, like so the if you think about like the min of 4, 10 and the max of 3, 7 intersect, right? In other words, the minimum of 4, 10 is less than the maximum
4.
of 3, 7.
Well, the maximum 3 of 7 is 7, right?
Right.
Okay, so yeah, it is less.
Yeah. And so if that condition is met, then we want to merge them, right? Because like that's what it means to merge is that there's overlap,
Okay.
right?
So I
So,
guess we go back to this above case. It's like, what was it? 6 and 10?
yeah.
And then, so then the max of, well, sorry, what did you say again? Was it the max of these two?
Well, so the higher interval you want to take the minimum
Yeah.
of, and the lower interval to the maximum of, right? Or and vice versa. So we have, if I
Okay.
just draw on the right here, right? So we have A equals, let's call it 610, right? And B equals 37, right? Now, in real life or in the real problem, you can't tell ahead of time if A is going to be the bigger interval, is a higher interval, or A is going to be a smaller interval, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with the loss of generality, we can just assign it so that A is the bigger one for now. Okay. So what
Okay.
it means to overlap is that the higher interval, the interval with the higher maximum number, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
the lower point has to be less than the higher point of the lower interval.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. So then I guess then with code, it's like you take the min. As we were like looping through the intervals, I guess.
So for this problem, it also might be
I guess.
helpful to have a bit of like a pre-processing step, right? Like in our case, like in their case, like we drew the
Oops.
like we wrote the interval such that they're always like lower to higher,
Yeah.
but that's not going to be necessarily given the case. So I think just to kind of establish the ground rules there, I think it might be helpful um, to transform per se the intervals so that they're always lower to higher.
I guess you can sort them by the lower one.
Well, we can sort them by the lower one too, or we can just swap them, right? It's only two elements.
Okay. Right. Right. So as you're going through the list, you can like swap the two,
If they're
depending
in the
on
wrong
which one
order.
is
Yeah,
lower. Yeah.
and that way
So
you
just
can
take the min of.
go ahead.
Sorry, you go ahead.
No, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say take the min of both these and then see which one's lower, and then this one would be the lower interval, and after that you just compare these two. So then you take the min of this, and then this one B would be the lower interval, and then this one would be the higher. So then with the higher one, you take the min, so the one we just got, and then you take the max, and then you compare if 6 is less than or equal to 7.
Yes.
And
That
then if
well
it
that
is, then you would be an interval, or an overlapping interval, yeah.
yes, that's definitely one way to do it. But notice here that you're choosing to compare A and B explicitly, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the real problem, A and B might not be next to each other in the list.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, my first thought was just like loop through the array twice then. To just like check out every single one, and then
Okay.
after you do find one that does overlap, you can like merge them into the new list. But then you could be missing other stuff then. Can you? I don't know.
I mean, if you can miss other stuff, I mean, if you only loop
Like
over
let's see,
twice, do you mean for the entire problem, or do you mean twice per interval?
like twice per interval pretty much.
Yeah,
Like
twice per interval. I mean, that way you're guaranteed to compare every two interval, right? Every pair of intervals, you're guaranteed to compare
yeah.
them. So then you won't miss anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you won't miss anything. Yeah, that's probably like the brute force solution there.
We can always start with that if you can't think of something else and just try to nail down the implementation.
Okay. Yeah, let's just get started then. And for interval, so we go through each interval and then we take the one next to it, do we? Okay, I'm just thinking this through right now. So we take, for each interval, we take the one right next to it, and then we compare that. Okay. And what is it? I to I to the end of the list, and then okay. So once we're at this step, we can do what's it? High and then lower. Okay. This step we take the lower one first, so then you compare the two mins. Okay, let's do this for now, I guess. We just assign the higher one to be the first one for now, and then
Okay,
we do the lower one for the next one.
that's cool. Yeah.
And then, okay, and then we have to compare these. Then if, let's just swap them if they're the, okay, so I gotta think this through again. So we have to swap them if the, what was it? So the higher one was the last one, and then let's just swap higher and lower if the higher one has less.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this works.
Yeah, that gets the minimum of
I think
the.
I think that's I think that should work.
Yep.
It's higher than, and you just swap the two.
Okay, so we're saying here is that if the lowest value, if you compare the lowest value, you want to make sure that the higher has a higher low value than the lower. Okay.
My God, that this rest of the code is like so. It's like
Right.
kind
So
of
let's
over
so
the place
so
for the
so
higher
let's
lower.
yeah. So let's draw the case here, right? So let's say, for example, that higher is 3.7, and this is no. That's not what we wrote, right? Did we wrote that? No, we wrote 3.10. Did we? I forgot.
We
3.
wrote 610 for higher,
Okay.
but I guess
Okay.
do you want to
610.
consider the case where higher is lower?
Yeah. Let's do 3.7. 6.10. Right. So let's say this is. So let's say this is
Mm-hmm.
how it's assigned, right? Can you walk me through the logic
Mm-hmm.
here? So first of all, is this assigned correctly?
No, you want to swap these two
Okay.
because
You want to swap
higher
them.
should be lower.
Okay. So then tell me how
Yeah.
your logic works. So then what?
Then if like the minimum and or sorry minimum value for this higher is less than the minimum of the lower, then
Yeah.
you just want to swap the two. So you reassign higher to lower, and
Yes,
then
but
lower
is
to
this
higher.
condition met? So right. So first of all, we have this is the minimum higher, that's 3, and this is 6,
Uh-huh.
right? So that's
Yeah.
that then it's met, and so we'll swap them.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense. So at this point, we'll have yeah. So this is both swapped. Okay, so we'll swap them out. Okay, great. Now what?
Okay, after that, then we would want to check the minimum of the higher and
Okay,
then compare it to the max of the lower. And then if they do intersect, then we want to add that
okay,
to. Okay. Okay, here's the thing though. I'm not sure if I wanted to add it to like a result array or like just change it in place of the original array. I feel like if you do change it in place, um, that might make it easier to check for next ones. But then yeah, which one would you modify in place if you were to do it in place?
I mean, you
So
can.
I don't.
It doesn't really matter which one you want to modify. I would say since in this context, you're basically trying to merge intervals. Like first of all, you don't even know if you're gonna merge intervals yet, right? Like you don't know at this point. You don't
Mhm.
know if they're overlapping. That's the first thing I'm gonna say,
Yeah.
right? So first of all is you need a condition to check if you actually are going to merge these two, right? That's the first thing. But to answer your question, right? Like if you want to do it in place, I would say whether regardless of like so you can either choose to keep the lower, modify that one in place, or the upper or the higher, but keep that one in place. Doesn't matter which one you do, as long as you keep it consistent.
Okay. This way, I don't think you really have to use extra space for like a result array. Okay, I think I'll just choose to modify the lower. So yeah,
Okay.
and then we have to check. Now I think we check for check if check if the it was overlaps. So then we take is less of higher. That's not equal to. Yeah, I think it should be less than or equal to because if they, it doesn't have to be strictly less than.
Okay.
Because let's
Yeah.
say like what was it? This was 7, I think.
Yep.
This was 7. They both would be still be overlapping. It's just that
Yes.
if this was 8, then it won't be.
Yes.
Okay. And then I think now we just have to modify the lower interval. Oops. Modify lower interval, so then we just take lower do we just reassign it? Okay, so if it is, then say we just take lower to be 3 and now 10. So we take min of that and then max of that. So then the lower would be equal to a tuple, and then it'd be only just be min of lower and then max of higher.
Okay.
I believe this would change it because Python is, what was it, passed by reference? So
Are you confident?
I don't know.
You can just use a return array, like a result array for now.
I think this could also work.
Okay.
Well, actually, no, that's not guaranteed because we swapped them before. Um, yeah, I guess we could just do result array for now. And then I guess you just return at the end. Unless I'm missing anything. I'm just trying to go over edge cases maybe. So I'm guessing like the intervals, the range of these, like the lower and then the higher, like this can be all the way up to like negative infinity, right? So it'll just be like the real numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. Done. Min of lower, max of higher. Yeah, that should be right.
How about I'm looking through the solution right now, and I'm thinking about some edge cases as well. So one
Okay.
that I'm thinking about is if you had like, let's say you have input array of like I'm writing this in the code. So
Yeah,
let's
yeah, I
have,
see.
okay, I'm just trying to think out loud. So let's do 1 3. Uh, let's keep it easy. 2 4, and then 4 6. Let's just do that. So in this case, the result should be 1 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's
But then
walk
I
through
don't
what
do
your
that.
code would do.
Okay. Yeah, well then it'd just be a pending, what would it be? 1 4 and then I think what would it go? 1 4 and then 1 6. Or no,
What,
we're
what,
gonna go 1 6. So just go 1 4 and then this one wouldn't work. So then I go here and then it'd be 2 6. So then it'd be 1 4 and then 2 6. That's it.
yeah.
Yeah, which is not correct. So I guess I have to pass through the result rate again.
Right. Yeah. If
Oh,
you
okay,
if you
that's kind of
merge
messy. That
your
is really messy. That is really messy.
right, so the reason we're running into this edge case is because um, after we merge an interval, we put it to res, but the
Mm-hmm.
old interval still exists in the intervals, right? And we're only checking against intervals, and we aren't checking against res in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if we
What was it?
compared
One,
4 6
three.
against 1 4, then we would be correct.
Then you would append again. But then you have a duplicate, right? So that's not. Is that correct still?
Is what correct?
Because like, okay, let's say like after you do 1 4, you get rid of what did you get rid of this,
Okay, sure.
and then
Well, presumably you would also change this, right? Like that's still not correct then,
yeah. What was your
right? So then
okay?
you're
What did
saying
you want to say? Like so
like then
then.
well, what I'm saying is that like the issue right now is like you merged this correctly, so your res contains
Mm-hmm.
right res equals 1 6 0 1 4, right? And this is correct,
Yeah.
but when you're processing 4 6, you're still looping over intervals,
Mm-hmm.
right? And your intervals does not include 1 4,
Right.
right? So you either need to modify interval somehow, or you need to check your result for this for solution to work.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could do what you said previously, which is just kind of funny, right? So you have this. Right now you would have 2 4, 2 6, right?
No, no, I think that's just that. Okay, that other one would be kind of yeah. Like my initial idea was just like check res again, but then I don't think that would really work. I think you just have like an infinite kind
Well,
of
you wouldn't.
checking all the way down.
You wouldn't. Would it be infinite though? Well, it wouldn't be infinite because you're always like if it's mergeable,
Merging them. Okay.
you would reduce it by one every time at least. And if it's not mergeable, then you're complete, right? If it's not mergeable, then you're actually done.
I guess yeah. I guess yeah. You would want a while loop then. Well, it's like okay. Well, nothing has changed so far. I guess something like that.
Right? Like for example, if you had this was like I don't know, let's make it simple. Let's make it like 5 6, right? Then
Unmergeable. So yeah.
this would be unmergeable, so it would be done.
Yeah. If you just yeah. Okay.
Actually, now
I
that I
guess
look
that
at
is
this
one
thing,
way.
given this input, actually, do you actually append 5 6?
No, I don't.
Yes, you
Okay.
might need to have an else condition somewhere.
Yeah. What do I pen here then? So it's like both of them don't fit, so then you just append both of them, I guess.
Yeah, it's just saying both of them don't work. Yeah.
Then you just want okay. Let's just say it's like let's say the higher one's correct, so it'd just be 2 4, and this would be 5 6. 3
Yeah.
2 4. This would be 5 6. So then arguably this one is already in here. So then if I do append both, it'd be 1 4 2 4, and then 5 6. I guess you can do the append both of them, and it'd still be correct as long as I merge res again.
Yeah, if you merge res
But I
again, that'd
just
be correct. Yeah, but you would have excessive, like you have intermediate intervals in the meantime, right?
yeah, this is very inefficient. Yeah.
So what if we're able to kind of take care of this problem in general, right? Like the reason you
Yeah, do
have to
some.
compare things ahead of time, like before you can figure out which is higher or lower, is because you don't know which of higher or lower is higher or lower,
Hmm.
right? But can you pre-process it such that you always know that one is higher and one is lower? Is that possible?
Well, you can sort the array before you do anything. I think.
Okay, that seems reasonable. What was the reason? I mean, that we're not doing that right now?
Cause I guess you could swap them. Like that's what you said earlier. I think just like swap them if there were.
Yes, you
Yeah,
can.
I was thinking about like sorting the whole list. I don't know what. Maybe I misinterpreted your swapping.
Yeah, so I think sorting a list is probably going to be good for this case, so that you always know which was like the earlier in the list is lower. What I'm by
Mm-hmm.
swapping is that given an interval, the first element of the interval, like the start, might not be always a lower element. So you can also, in addition to sorting the list, also swap the interval start and end points such that the first of the start points
Yeah,
is
okay.
always lower.
Is the lower one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Okay, so then I guess you have to sort it, and then you have to have like some. You have to. I think you have to sort it by some key, right? Because these things are tuples. You can't compare them directly.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you want to sort by a key.
Uh,
I mean, technically you can compare them directly, but if you can't describe it, then just use a key.
I forgot this works. I don't think this is a parameter. I don't remember.
It is. You pass a
Okay,
lambda.
so that's not
Yeah.
okay. Is it two arguments? I don't remember for the lambda.
It's lambda with just one argument, which corresponds
Okay,
to a given
just the
interval.
tuple.
Yes, it's a key which you want to sort by. So how would you want to compare a tuple?
And compare the lower one. Something like that.
Okay.
And then I guess when you loop through.
Well, so now do you still need a nested for loop? Right. Let's think about what this means now. Right.
So now all of these would be in order. So then the
All
lower
these are
one
in
will always
order.
be.
Right. Yes. They're always in order. And
Okay, and
for
then if they only merge if min of the higher one is less than or equal to the max of the lower one. So as long as this is less than that. Hmm.
right, like you wanna check a couple things here, right? The first you wanna check is like inside of this loop, right? I mean, first of all, you know that the lower right is gonna be intervals at zero, right? That's guaranteed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, well, we can just start at like one, right? And so you know that higher equals intervals at I, right? So
Yeah.
this is guaranteed now.
Right.
Okay, can you take the logic from here? Right, let's draw this up.
Uh,
So you have 1 3, and this is going to be
1, 3, 2, 4.
2 4. Okay, so walk me through it.
And then
So
you.
let's count this out for now.
Okay. Okay. So then we just lower. And then I guess, do we just reassign lower afterwards? Okay. Yeah, so we just do what we just did earlier. And
Okay,
then
yep.
we can. Okay, well, first of all, we can do what you just said to swap them. Swap the lower element. I'm not sure if that's necessary, though.
It's not
Because if you just
necessary
take min and
anymore
max.
because you did it like this, which is very smart.
Yeah, okay.
But you still have to be smart about how you check it.
Yeah, okay, so higher equals that, lower. And then you just check it again. So yeah, I think just swap if higher is lower, then swap if, what was it called? The min. That max of, and then what was it?
Is that I want to wait? Hold on here. So what does that condition mean? Like, what do we mean by swap?
Sorry, I meant merge.
Okay.
Merge if. 'Cause I was legit just looking down here for some
Yeah.
reason. Lower than most. Okay. Then okay, I guess now that we have the sort thing going us for us, would we okay? Would I want to have the result erased still, or can I just modify the lower one now?
So you still want to keep it around just for convenience, and then afterwards you can decide whether or not you want to get rid of it.
All right. And if min of higher, that's this would mean that they're overlapping.
Okay.
And now you would want to append that. It would be min of the lower, and then it'd be max of the higher.
Cool. But we don't
And then
know.
and then you have to append it again. I guess it's another sticky situation. So if they aren't merged, then you append both of them.
Let's be careful here. Let's add an
Okay.
invariant. The invariant is that we can only append maximally merged intervals to to the result, right? In other words, the lower variable should hold the interval which we're currently trying to merge into, right? Lower, you're currently holding 1 3 because we want to merge as much as possible into 1 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we know we want to merge higher, let's update lower to be equal to the union of the two intervals. And
Okay.
then, if we're not able to merge, then we know that lower must be the maximum interval possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we can append that to result because that interval we know is final. It must exist in a final array.
Okay.
That would just help us simplify some of the logic here.
Right. Okay. So
So you don't want to append to the result if you're merging. You only want to append to the result if there's something else to merge.
right. Okay. And then we're equal to. Once again, it was min of lower and then max of higher,
Yep.
and then otherwise you actually append.
Yes, because now lower contains the because it's done, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's maximally merged now. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I think you would want to swap. Okay, which case would you swap?
Well, and then so
Lower.
after we apply that, after we append that, sorry, right? Now we want to update lower. Again, we want to
So
update
then
lower
lower
to
would
be
go
the
to
new.
higher.
Yes, because now higher high becomes the new lowest interval, right?
Right.
And we
Right.
want to
Okay.
merge things into this new quote unquote higher, what's now lower.
Right. Okay. And then yeah, and then you append lower. Lower equals higher, and then I'm just gonna walk through this case right
Yep.
now. So that's okay. So then 1 3 would it be set to lower? Assuming this sorting goes correctly,
Yeah, that's fine.
then 1 3 goes there, and then higher since we're starting from 1 would be 2 4, and then you take the min of higher would be 2, and then the max of lower which is 3, and then this condition is met. So then you
Yep.
update lower to be 1 and 4, and
One
then
and
you keep
four.
on going. And then so now higher would be 5 and
This
6.
is 1 4. This is 5 6. Let's draw it out. Yeah, keep it
Right.
simple. Okay. Yeah, and then.
And then so then min of higher is 5, which is
Yep.
not less than or equal to 3. But then you
4
just
in
append
that
lower,
case.
1 4, and then lower equals to higher. But then now we're out of the array, I'm pretty sure. Oh, sorry, out of the loop, I'm pretty sure.
Yep. Right out of the loop.
And then so then you have to apply. I think you do one last append, I guess. I don't know.
After loop or inside the loop.
That's what I'm thinking. Okay, let me think. So then 1 4 is appended, but then 5 6 still remains. Hmm.
Right. So 5 6. 5 6 is in higher. This is not met. So this happens. Right. So we appended 1 4,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and now lower equals 5 6.
I guess 5 6.
Right.
Yeah. But
And
then
then
now we're out of the
we're out
loop.
of the loop because there's no more intervals.
Okay. I'm just not sure if you append lower still, because there might be a case where like let's say this is 4 6.
Okay.
This is 4 6, and now this would be 4 6. So let's just say everything is good, and then
Well, that'd be 1 4,
sorry, this would
right?
be 1 4, and then this would be 4 6, and then after this you'd append this, and then you just never append it, and then So then you're out of it. Oh, I guess yeah, you do want to append it afterwards. Because like okay, so in this case,
Yep.
eventually lower would become 1/6, but then you haven't appended anything yet. So then you want to append it outside since you updated this. And then in the other case where it's like, okay, this is 5/6, then what was that again? This would be 1/4. So you did append 1/4, but now you updated lower to higher. So now this would be 5/6,
Yep.
and you haven't appended 5/6. And then once you get out of the loop, you still want to append this 5/6, right? So then you append it right after the loop.
Yep. That's right.
And I think that should be good. Okay.
Cool. Let's
Then
talk
after that,
about the time and space complexity of this implementation.
okay. Well, sorting has a lower bound of big O of n log n, so let's assume we're using n log n. And then space complexity for sorting, you can either have it as O of 1 or O of n. I think let's just assume the best case here, so it would be O of n. Or sorry, O of n 1, sorry. O of 1.
How
Big O
about
of 1.
the average case?
Loop. Sorry?
How about the average case of sorting? Like, do you
Or
know
what,
what the
space or
sort
time?
for time? Well, for space. Sorry, for space.
Average for
Yeah, like do you
average
know what
space?
this? Yeah, what do you expect this to take?
Oh, that's interesting. Like for sorting, I feel like it really depends. Like usually, because like for different sorting algorithms, you can either have as O of 1
Uh huh.
or O of n. And I think in average case, like it really depends on which one you picked. Like an average case of, let's say, let's say quicksort. I'm pretty sure quicksort is the O of 1 space
Well,
algorithm,
if
and
you
that
don't
is,
know what the I mean, do you know what Python uses for list sorting?
I think it's like Tim sort. It's like a combination of merge sort and was it
Yes.
insertion sort. So that would be O of n space.
Yes. Okay, that's
Okay,
fine.
O of n space, and
Yep.
then you have this for loop here that goes through the entire interval, which would be O of n. But then that's oh, and then we have a result array, which is also O of n space complexity.
Mm-hmm.
So then I think in the end you have sorting, which is n log n, and then this is n, so then it just evens out to big O of n log n space, or sorry, big O of n log n of time complexity, and then big O of n space complexity.
Okay. Um. Yeah, nothing to say. I think that's about time for us as well. So let's
Mm-hmm.
call it here and let's go to the after show. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. I just want to hear your thoughts first about how you feel like you did. Highlights, lowlights, anything like that.
Yeah, I think I did not do that well, mainly
Okay.
because I don't think my brain was like half functioning.
Okay.
I think you had to like explain a lot of concepts to me that I feel like should have been pretty like simple to begin with.
Right.
Yeah, just like the interval stuff. It's like, oh yeah, you have to take the min of the high and the max of the lower. It's like once you like drew that out, I guess like drawing out would be a
Yeah.
better way. I thought the
Definitely.
yeah, go ahead.
I do like the drawing. Right. Like you shouldn't shy away from drawing if it's available as a tool.
Hmm.
One thing I wrote in my notes. I didn't write many notes today because I was pretty involved in the interview. But one thing I did write in my notes was that like good diagrams help you understand problems, and also
Right,
importantly, it helps the interviewer understand why you're doing it wrong.
right,
Right?
right.
Like if you're doing something wrong, if you're drawing something wrong in the diagram, the interviewer can pick it up and say, "Oh, I understand where you're making a mistake. I understand your misconception." They can help you out,
Hmm.
right? Some people are worried that like, oh, they'll see the mistake and they won't help me out. Dude, it doesn't matter. If they're not gonna help you out there, they won't help you out anywhere else either. Okay, so don't solve for the worst case. Solve for the case which you're gonna pass. If you're gonna fail anyways. Don't worry about that, right? So just draw it out.
Hmm.
Okay. Any other
Uh,
notes? Any other comments?
I think yeah, I think you just in this interview, I think you helped me way more than I think a normal interviewer would.
Yes, that's true. Most interviewers, well, so here's the thing. A good interviewer would help you anyways, but they just won't give you the marks for the parts they helped you at. Right?
Yeah.
It's a poor experience for the candidate to sit there thinking about should they swap the variables or not. Okay, that's not Like after you struggle about that, I say, okay, in my notes, all right, they don't know how to swap variables, or they don't know when to swap variables, and then I'll help you out because I don't learn anything else from watching you sit there trying to swap two intervals, right? So a good interviewer would help you, but they wouldn't give you the credit for that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, okay, so if that's your kind of thought, I can talk a little bit about that as well. A couple of notes here is I think you were off to a pretty strong start. You were asking some really good clarification questions, right? Some of the stuff about
Hmm.
open and closed intervals, that's a really good one that people miss. About decreasing intervals, that's a good one. Drawing stuff out immediately is good intuition, right? A couple of
Hmm.
things I wanted to say here is that now this problem this didn't come into play, but I wrote that you should probably take more notes. Okay, some
Hmm.
problems there's going to be a lot of those details that you're going to forget later on. So it's always good to have in writing somewhere some of the key points, the key kind of edge cases that you thought of. So when you go back to test your implementation, you can you can always reference it. Oh, did I account for that edge case? Did I account for that edge case, etc. So I would say as a mechanism, you should try to take notes.
Okay, so
Okay.
like just like the top of the
Yeah, just top of the thing as the interviewer is
profile.
dictating the problem, or even if they copy paste the problem in for you, you still want to write your own notes, or modify what they wrote to add pointers to yourself, right?
So
So
add
just
like different stuff like edge cases
yeah,
and then
edge
just like
cases, quick fire questions, specific like let's say like vocabulary clarification, like interval, closed, open, right? That's a good one.
hmm
So I'd say that's something which you should always be looking to be looking to talk about.
hmm
Um, Otherwise, I think there's a couple things about implementation as well. So you actually floated the idea of sorting pretty early on, right?
hmm
And sorting in this case would have been optimal.
hmm
For an interviewer at that point, the signal that they understand is that you have a lot of tools in the toolbox, but you just don't know when to use them, right?
Okay.
Whenever you write a nested for loop to compare every pair of elements, that is just like an objectively inferior way to compare elements than sorting,
hmm
because sorting also compares every pair of elements
Yeah, that's right.
without having to compare every pair of elements. So
Yeah.
that is just a fundamental misunderstanding of what's going on there, right? So whenever you write out a nested for loop
hmm
like that, that should be ringing red flags. That should be red flags right
It's
there
like
for yourself, right? You should be stopping yourself and say, oh, hold on a second, I recognize this pattern. Give me a second. I'm gonna think about if I can do this via sorting. Okay,
um
because that's
because
gonna
sorting okay, sorting's more optimal.
yes, it is because sorting doesn't actually require you to compare every pair of elements explicitly, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a note there. And I would say in like this is obviously just one example of that we encountered in this interview. I would encourage you to kind of develop that intuition in your own problem solving, right? Like if you're
hmm
doing the Leetcode, whatever you're doing, as you solve a problem, maybe you solve it suboptimally, that's okay. But when you see the optimal answer, you should think to yourself, oh, I wrote it the suboptimal way. That's the optimal way. How can I identify that in the future? Right? Like if I'm doing this sort of pattern, that's not optimal for this. I could do it more efficiently. So just
Right.
start
Right.
building intuition. Like just think very critically about it. Right? This is what I mean. Like don't grind it. Just do it like intelligently. Right?
hmm
Be very specific about thinking about those kind of things. Because that's a
hmm
much more effective way to learn about the patterns than to memorize specific questions. Right?
hmm
Similarly, this is another high level kind of comment is always think about pre-processing. Right? Always thinking about what it takes to pre-process something. And the reason I bring that up is because that should just be a thing which you think of to minimize the weirdness. I call it the weirdness, like the edge cases of a problem. Right? For
Right.
example, the fact that some intervals can be decreasing. Well, you can just make them all increasing. Right? It's going to
hmm
cost you linear pre-processing of the problem, but because you know this problem's at least linear time anyways, that's not going to cost you anything.
hmm
Right? So you can just say, oh, hey, you know what? I'm going to pre-process the intervals such as they're all increasing. That's not going to cost me anything extra because it's going to be at minimum linear since they go through the intervals anyways. So I'm just going to do that
hmm
and bang, 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 just bang that out. It should take like maybe 10 seconds, 20 seconds to write that, right? Just to kind of swap them if they're minimum or maximum, right?
Yeah. Just
Another
like a
reason,
simple for loop.
yeah, exactly. It's very simple. Keep it simple, right?
Okay.
That's going to save you a lot of mental power later on with thinking about the max and the lower, like these things over here. Okay, that's going to save you time,
Yeah.
and it's going to save you mental effort, and it's going to save you from any bugs.
Okay.
Okay. Um, so just be aware of that. Pre-processing is your friend if you can leverage it. Now sometimes
Okay.
pre-processing might be too expensive, so you can't do it. But just think of it that way, right? If this problem, you know you have to go through the intervals anyways. That's at least minimum time, linear time. So any other linear like problem, like any other linear helpers are not a problem at all.
Mhm.
Other than that, only thing I had left to say was about the time and space. I think you actually got that quite well overall. Um, uh, one slight note I had was about the sorting, right? So you actually knew about Tim sort, right?
Yeah.
Like you actually know about Tim sort. You know that it's theta n or big O n that works too for space, right?
Mhm.
So I think it was a bit weird to talk about constant space for some algorithms because that's not what's being used here, right? So I think just
Okay.
keep it simple, right? And also we're talking about big O, right? So we're talking about the worst case,
Okay.
right? So worst case in this case would be linear space for the sorting, and that's also why I'm saying when I was talking about earlier, hey, let's not rush to remove the temporary or the result array, right? Let's not rush until we can actually see if that's going to save us time or space, because if you were trying to, in addition to having all the other modifications, in addition to that, you were also trying to optimize for space. That might have been inducing some errors.
Mhm.
Okay, and that wouldn't have been more efficient anyways.
Yeah.
So just keep it in perspective, right? Do the simple stuff first, and then come back later for optimizations.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, that's all the. Oh, I guess some smaller notes. Like I would say, yeah, there's a couple things you might want to just familiarize yourself with a bit more in Python, right? Like the lambda thing. This is correct,
Mhm.
by the way, so you got it right. Um, but it didn't have to be a struggle. It's a bit of a like it might be the interviewer, especially if they're looking to hire for a Python role, they might have some
That's a
reservations,
bad
right?
look.
Right, like yeah, it's a bad luck. Like you don't know what lambdas are, or like why is it a struggle to use a lambda here, right? That's a bit weird, right? Also the pass by
Mhm.
reference, that kind of stuff. True, but you want to make sure you get it right. So stuff like that. Like you just want to make sure you look okay, right? Just a confidence thing, right?
Confidence. Yeah. Yeah. I
Otherwise, I don't
think
think there's really. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I was like more unsure of anything. Cause like I was like probably like 80% sure, but I was like,
Yeah,
am I doing this correct? It's like kind of like second guessing yourself.
yeah, fair. Well, and that's why it matters, right? Is that you have to
Hmm.
be
Yeah.
the stuff you do.
Confident.
You have to be well. Look, if you're just using Python to do interviews and stuff, and the role doesn't really care, that's not really a big deal. But a lot of roles these days they do kind of want Python, right? It might be like a scripting role, data science stuff, or it might be like actually a Python role like Flask or something, right? Then they're gonna care a lot more.
Hmm.
The last thing I'll say, which is a super nitpick, which isn't negative points at all, is that Python does not use Tim sort. Python used Tim sort up until 3.11, and then after 3.11, Python uses power sort. So the complexity is the same, but technically speaking, it's not Tim sort anymore. So if you're actually interviewing for a Python role, just make sure that your information is up to date, or they
Bro,
might
no
go
way they
like,
changed that last second or something. Jesus
well,
Christ.
they're always that's the thing about Python, right? Is or any of these languages is like, yeah, it's important to know the like the high level concepts and ideas, but just be careful about what you're confident with, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, but they're not. But even for someone who knows that, they'll still be impressed. Oh, the student they understand Tim sort. That's pretty good, right? No one's gonna go like, oh, this person didn't know his power sort. That's blah blah blah. So yeah, but anyways, that's all from me. I want to leave 5 minutes for you to ask any questions you have. Anything about this particular session or about interviewing in general, I'm all yours.
All right. I think my first thought was just like being like in the moment, like in the hot seat, like just thinking
Yeah.
out loud. I don't think that's really a strength of mine
Mm-hmm.
because I think like throughout the interview, I'm not sure if you noticed or not. I was just trying to just like kind of went like silent a couple times, just like trying to
Yes.
think like how to approach this problem. And then I think that kind of like lowered the report of the interviewer and I. So I'm not sure like
Mm-hmm.
how you like approach like thinking out loud.
Yeah, there's a couple. I mean, first of all, thanks for calling that out. That is true. Um, that can be viewed as a bit of a negative thing, but I will say that most interviewers won't dock you too many points there, right?
Okay.
I would say there's a couple things you can do just immediately that really helps the situation. The first is to acknowledge it, right? Say, hey, I need a moment to think right now. I'm gonna just just focus on this for a minute. Just give me. I'll be back in like a minute. I'm gonna just really kind of focus on that, right? Just set the
Mm-hmm.
expectation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one part of it. Because then if you're going silent for a minute, the interviewer goes like, you know what? I won't disturb him. He's trying to think of something right now. I'm gonna give him a moment, right?
Right.
Otherwise, they might think, oh, this person's stuck. They don't know what's going on. I better jump in and help,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the first thing I'd say is set the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the most important part. The second part is a skill that I think is helpful to develop, which is thinking out loud, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think like, oh, hey, I just saw this edge case with the intervals being swapped. I'm gonna just draw out this really quick example and just see what happens if I do it the other way around, right? So just very very simply going through and showing the interviewer thought process can help. Okay, now I understand that's easier said than done. I know that. Okay, I've been there too.
Yeah.
But I think that's a skill you can practice by yourself, right? Like you don't even
Mm-hmm.
need anyone in the room. Like you can just when you do Leetcode, just talk about it, right? Just talk. Just start talking, and then have your own feedback loop. Just say, oh well, I just realized I was talking about intervals, but that doesn't matter. I need to talk about sorting. Sorting is what matters, right? So
Mm-hmm.
just catch yourself, right? Catch yourself there. So you
Mm-hmm.
can practice that by yourself. That's effective, and then you can practice it with your friends. Like you don't need to have me in the room. You can just have other friends who don't know how to do Leetcode. That's okay too, right? Just have other
Yeah.
friends read
Like sit there
you
and like.
just verbatim a Leetcode prompt. Don't be fancy. Don't be smart. Just read it verbatim a Leetcode prompt, and then just have you start thinking. Right?
Uh,
You don't really need skill to prompt someone for that. Like you just need someone in
uh-huh.
the room to bounce ideas off of. So you start by practicing by yourself, and then practicing with some friends, and then practicing and then go and get in some more box or something. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But the skill here does not depend on me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You can get feedback from other people, just anyone else who understands Leetcode, about what they thought about your thought process.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's a very very easily practicable skill. So
Mm-hmm.
start on that. So start there. Start easy.
Okay. So like when interviewers are looking for like a thought process, are they looking for like an easy to follow one or like more of like an intuitive one
Um,
where it's just like
there's two kind of problems. So now we're getting a bit advanced. Okay. There's two kind of problems. There's a kind of problem in which you're expected to get the correct solution. By
yeah.
correct I mean optimal slash good code. For those,
Yeah.
they don't care about your thought process. They just want to think, okay, yeah, that's about right. Yeah, okay. No, he's a bit off there. Oh no, he's fine. Right? That's what they care about. Now, there's other problems in which you cannot reasonably get the optimal solution. That's not the goal. The goal
Okay.
is for you to understand why the problem is difficult, for you to understand what are the components of the problem, what is reasonably accomplishable, what are the reasonable trade-offs. Like for example, oh hey, this problem is pretty hard. I don't think I could optimize for space at all. Can I just
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice the space complexity in general? Is it okay if I just use some more room here? Right? Okay, that's very good. This person understood that there's too many aspects of this problem to solve. They're thinking
Mm-hmm.
aloud. They communicated to me that they don't think they can do a certain aspect. That's totally cool. Let's see what you can do. So
Mm-hmm.
for some of those problems, then it's very critical to have the thought process. Because if you just open up, say, yeah, this problem's too hard. I can't do the space optimization. Like, true, but like that was not prompted. That was not justified,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know you have to. It depends on the problem. Okay, so
Okay.
I can't give a clear answer on that one.
Okay.
Cool. Last minute. Anything else you want to bring up?
Um, I think yeah, you just talked about like some like small intuitions that can help you a lot. Like the double for loop is usually worse than just sorting it,
Yeah.
and then also with the other one with like, okay, the intervals is like it's like n items long, right? So when you want to merge them, like eventually you have to merge all of them, right? Or at least check all of them, which
Yes.
would also be
Yes.
O of n. So then I'm guessing like developing this intuition probably comes through practice, right?
It comes from practice. It also comes from like one thing is to practice by yourself, like do lead codes. Another
Yeah.
thing is to um, is to watch other people do interviews and say, oh, they just made a really smart jump there. How did they do it? Could have I done the same? So it's a lot of reflection. So practice,
Hmm.
reflection, and then I would say
Okay.
another general thing is to study fundamentals, right? Like for
Okay.
example, earlier today we said, hey, we won't touch some certain topics, and that's okay. But the truth
Hmm.
is, in some of the more advanced topics, they're going to require a fundamental understanding of some of the prior topics, right?
Hmm.
Like you can't do graphs without doing trees, right?
Right.
That's just how it works. So I would say, whenever you're feeling like, oh, I'm really struggling to form intuition on graphs, okay, that's fine. That's hard. That's normal. Start a step back, right? Make sure your trees are rock solid. Make sure your BFS, DFS basic traversals are rock solid, right?
Yeah.
So it's a case of like, hey, don't always try to gun for the hardest thing. Start with the basics if you have to. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for coming on, Daniel.
Yep.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah,
If
thanks
you have any
for taking
questions,
this
you can
interview.
feel free to just DM me on Discord after, and we can have a chat. But thank you very much for participating. Appreciate it. Take care.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to have me.